Hi, welcome to Mojave 4 Presents. Today we are going to be doing a segment we call Plugging Plot Holes.
Have they ever just bothered you? You watch a movie and you see something and you just go, damn it, that doesn't make any sense.
Many movies have them. In fact, I dare say all holes will have one movie. All movie will have at least one plot hole.
Yes.
And it could be something very small, very noticeable, easily forgiven. Some of them are pretty glaring. Some of them are very large.
Yeah.
And we've had this conversation many times
Yeah.
over that. But here's the question. When you hear people complaining about plot holes, it's usually that. It's just complaining. We're going to take it a step further. We're going to take a look at a complaint and then discuss ways to get around the complaint. What could you do to change it? Or at least what can you put into your headcanon that allows for that plot hole to exist? So I took 12 of the most popular plot holes that I could find online. So, popularity is relative.
Yes.
But I took it and I made this little list of the plot holes, 1 through 12, and we have this wheel, which is just very satisfying.
Yes.
Which has 1 through 12 on it. And we are going to spin the wheel, and that will tell us which movie plot hole we're going to take a good closer look at. So, are we ready?
Over here, yes.
Are you prepared?
Yes. Yeah.
Do we need to stretch a little?
As prepared as I'm going to be.
All right, okay, here we go.
Plug some plot
I'm going to give it a spin.
Ooh, good spin.
And
Number
we're at
4.
Number 4, Armageddon.
I'm starting to feel like this channel is going to be a little Michael Bay bashing. It shouldn't be. Let me tell
shouldn't
you that
be.
right out of the gate. We're not here to do this.
And we're fans of Michael Bay.
Yes.
Don't get us wrong. If you watched our pitch slap, we did kind of razz Michael Bay a little.
Yeah.
But it was totally coincidental that we pulled the Michael Bay movie. But here is the plot hole that surfaces. And I believe that even Ben Affleck, famously in the commentary, in the audio commentary of this movie, stated this. Armageddon, it would have been easier to train astronauts how to drill rather than train drillers to become astronauts. So the plot hole that they feel is it would have been easier to train astronauts who are highly skilled scientists who happen to be action heroes, by the way. So, an astronaut has the full package of high IQ, high facility, high physical ability. None of them are Steve Buscemi. And I love Steve Buscemi. Again, not bashing Steve Buscemi, but he doesn't really look like an astronaut to me at first blush. At least not that character that he played.
Not that character.
In Armageddon.
No, not that character.
So that is a pretty glaring plot hole.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that always engrossed me about Armageddon, beyond the fact that there's a giant asteroid that's going to destroy the world, and the plan was to set off a nuke, and that whole storyline, that whole plot line. One of the things I always enjoyed was that they asked to be exempt from taxes for the rest of their lives.
Yes.
Of all the things that really stood out in my brain was the idea that they were like, we don't want to pay taxes ever again. And they're like, done.
Done.
And I'm like, that's neat. Get out a tax-free card for saving the planet.
Saving the planet. It's a small price to pay.
Right. And I'm like, that's strangely pedestrian, but kind of brilliant at the same time.
Yeah.
So let's discuss the plot hole of this. To me, first and foremost, plot readiness, if you wanted it to be this cast, this group, would be to make it a more finite timeline, suggesting that there was no time to train either way, and then make a lot of concessions for bringing a bunch of civilians into space.
Yeah.
Because they're not responsible for flying anything. They're not responsible for any of that. So you have the ability to tell the story where they're not being trained so hard to be astronauts, which was a very enjoyable part of the movie, certainly. But give them the very And maybe split the difference, bring less minors, and train up some astronauts, and that could have been a good way to go.
Yeah.
Is to have a group of experienced astronauts plus 1 or 2 minors. The experts, the absolute experts. But entertainingly, I think if you shrink the time, to truncate the time, not allowing for heavy duty training.
Right.
And a lot of that comes to what is your suspension of disbelief? What is your ability to maintain and withstand this? Because in a lot of ways, this isn't really a plot hole as much as it is an excuse to move the story.
Right.
And that's worth discussing because it's not a plot hole; it is the plot. It is the plot.
Right.
So if you didn't like it, if you didn't like that was the plot, that's not really a plot hole, because the plot is we're bringing these blue collar
civilians
into space to save the world. And I want to say that of all the things, like the concept of detonating it on its surface or doing things like that, out in space, and I don't know this, I am not a space person. I don't really understand space all that much. I know it's, big and black and scary.
Right.
And can, freeze you or suck the oxygen, create a vacuum, all that good stuff.
Yeah,
and
terrifying.
I recently learned that it's not as bad as that. It's bad, but it's not as bad as that. Because I used to have a problem with Event Horizon. I don't know how many of you have ever seen Event Horizon. But there is a scene in Event Horizon, spoilers, where somebody is out in space and they retrieve him. And in my brain, I was like, wouldn't you instantly die? I guess Guardians of the Galaxy did it too, where someone's just floating out in space. It's like, wouldn't you instantly die? And I learned recently, no, that's not the case. You don't instantly die. It is painful and horrible, and you don't want it to happen to you.
Right.
But you don't instantly. You don't just die. Back to the Armageddon. The question at it is, I wonder if there weren't at some point the ability to come up with another answer. Because in space, if you hit a rock, what is to keep it from moving? Like, could you change its gravitational alignment? Could you, if you took a rocket and just kind of unmanned it, hit it, would that help, change its trajectory?
That's what I was thinking too. Is it a matter of matching speed with it that would cause it to be able to change its trajectory all the way around?
Because there was something about detonating on the surface that wouldn't do anything. You have to get into it, drill down into it, blow it into pieces. Yeah, right? They wanted it to be like that, and I'm like, are you really saying that a giant explosion wouldn't do something to its trajectory?
Right.
I don't understand science enough, and thank God I didn't have to, because Armageddon is not exactly high science fiction.
Thank you for that.
Thank
Michael
you.
Bay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
However, my answer to fixing this plot hole, if I were to fix the plot hole, I probably would train astronauts and then bring a smaller team of experts.
Yeah.
Because in the end, no matter how much you train an astronaut, if the equipment needs to be, maintained and looked at, if there are problems, and of course then that's where the dynamic plot tension comes from.
Yeah.
There comes a problem that only one of these experts can do, and that becomes, sort of the idea of you stay on the ship, you don't leave, you don't go out there. You are our advisor, you are an onlooker. Mm-hmm. If you'll remember, we sent a school teacher.
Yeah.
We tried to. And I did not mean to bring up a source substance. That was not the plan. But it is, suffice to say, there's room on a spaceship for people who aren't essential to being astronauts. And they do not require so much training. So that, not to say they don't require any, but that becomes the back and forth, which is if they are just being maintained on a ship, because they're not responsible for anything on the ship.
No.
And so that concept, again, the more I say it out loud, it is actually easier to turn a person into a passenger than to turn an astronaut into an experienced
driller. Right.
Because
you're talking about, first off, you have to have a contingency of I'm sure they have ways of, by sight or science mumbo jumbo to figure out what this asteroid was made of.
Right, but they could be wrong.
You
could get down a little way, and then all of a sudden you're in a different type of
type of mineral or ore that you're dealing with, and then you got to have somebody up there who can make that adjustment on the fly. And you don't know; you might not be able to make that adjustment.
That's very true. And so, yeah, I dare say, in a weird way, good on you, Michael Bay.
Yeah,
because
I think
it might be easier to train people to withstand the travel space, because they're not. The concept of training them to be astronauts is not completely true. They were not responsible for flying the ship. They were not responsible for the maintenance of the ship. They were not in any way. They were being trained to be passengers in space.
Right.
Which, yes, in the most base level definition, they were astronauts, but they weren't responsible for any function of the ship.
Correct. They were literally
I do think
passengers being taken to a destination to perform a job.
I do think that there needed to be more stringent psychological evaluations.
Yeah.
Because I think they did psychological evaluations, but I think they needed to be a little more stringent.
Yeah.
And I feel like the odds of just taking one single team that were all together feels like it would have, if you went through the entire planet, you would have found like 10 Bruce Willises.
Yeah.
You would have found 10, and you can say that team was the best of the best of the best. It's like, sure, but weren't there individuals somewhere else in the world who really knew their stuff and really, knew what they were doing? So all that aside, I'm beginning to get onto, and I've never thought about this before. I've always accepted the statement, would it be easier to train astronauts to become drillers than to train drillers to become astronauts? I've always accepted that as, yeah, well, of course. But now, I think I've actually talked myself out of thinking this was a plot hole at all.
Yeah, I'm not so sure this was a plot hole that needed to be plugged.
Right.
I don't think there's a hole.
There you go.
I think maybe we're giving, Mr. Bay and Mr. Bruckheimer a little extra credit here.
B&B.
For actually talking this one out, but I think they did.
Yeah.
I think they figured that, no, this was, maybe you didn't need as many of the crew that they took up there.
Sure.
But nonetheless, you hired these people to do a specific job. You just needed to prepare them to handle an unreal amount of G's to get there.
Right.
Then after that, all right, you're on your own.
Right. There you go.
You're
Do your job.
Just don't get out of this suit and you're good to go. I'm sure there's obviously far more to be trained than that.
Oh, sure.
But
bottom line, I didn't give it much thought, because when you say it, you're like, yeah, well, of course. Of course it would be easier.
Yeah.
But is it?
Is it?
Geology and astrophysics are two very different sciences.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, just difference in doctor specialities. There's a reason we don't go to an ear, nose, throat guy because we've got an ingrown toenail. There's specialities.
Absolutely.
And maybe in this instance, bringing specialists was easier than training people who had no experience.
Right.
So okay. Yeah, there you go. We have
we fixed the plot hole that didn't exist.
Fixed the plot hole that didn't exist. Although this is plugging plot holes, so we were actually just addressing what people believe to be plot holes.
True.
Because there are probably many that we don't necessarily think are plot holes.
Yeah.
So
we managed to go on quite a journey through that one.
yeah. Well, and to think honestly, that I accepted it at face value without thinking about it because it's not a high stakes movie.
No,
I enjoyed it. I had a great time watching it. I've never revisited it.
no.
It's not like my comfort movie. I don't put it on.
I can't tell you the last time I watched Armageddon,
Yeah.
especially start to finish. Maybe it's on a TV at a bar somewhere, and you're not paying
maybe
attention to it. But
flipping the channels on a Saturday afternoon, you might pause to watch Steve Buscemi shoot at his friends with a space gun and then realize that no consequence really fell upon him.
no.
I'd like to think that when he got to Earth, they threw him in jail.
Well, and that's when he became his character from Con Air. So,
That's right. That's how he became the Con Air. Oh wow, that was such a creepy character.
yeah. Boy, I bet that movie's got all sorts of plot holes in it.
We will have to examine
We'll
that.
have to
But
examine it if it comes up.
we can take Armageddon off of our.
This is
List.
true. So there you go. That's plugging plot holes.
That's what plugging plot holes looks like. A shout out to Thomas Houston, because Thomas and Houston and I were having lunch one day and we got to talking about plot holes. And what we really talked about was some plot holes are easily remedied.
Yeah.
You can get around certain things. And sometimes it's as simple as adding a line, or sometimes it's as simple as shooting a scene, just to give you some idea of the reasons why people behave in the ways they do and the things that they do. So I look forward to talking this. And if you have plot holes that kind of bug you, share them, because it's fascinating
Yes.
to think about how many stories we watch and how many stories we pay attention to. And there's that one thing that doesn't make our logical sense for the story, for whatever reason. So yeah, give us a shout out if you have a plot hole. We'll try to plug it for you.
Yeah, we'll see how it works. Comment down below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. What is all the other stuff people say? Thumbs up, thumbs up, not thumbs
Thumbs
down.
up, not thumbs down. Yeah.
Thumbs up.
If you liked it, great. If you didn't, sorry. See you later.
No, we'll try
don't
again
come
next
back.
time. Yeah. We'll try again next time. So let's just all try again.